Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Welcome back, and today we are talking about one of the hardest things to do when you've got a soft heart and a strong soul, because I really want us to really get into on how to detach with love, because I know sometimes we get so into attaching with a person. And I want you to be able to know that you can detach with love. So you're still able to be yourself, able to be you, and still be in love with somebody else. Now, I know the word detach sounds so cold, and I get that because it sounds like cutting someone off, never looking back. But real detachment isn't about resentment or proving a point. It's about protecting your peace, even when you still love someone. So I want you to take a deep breath with me for a moment. Just land here in this space we're creating together, whether it's a friend, a family member, a past relationship, or even someone you've been holding on to emotionally long after the relationship ended. Today's episode is for you. We're going to talk about what actually detachment really means and what it's not, how to love someone and still let go, and how to move forward or just move from guilt and confusion to clarity and grounded peace. Because I want you to know something right. From the start, this conversation comes from my own journey too. I've been the woman who stayed too long before, who've kept trying to make things work that weren't working, who confused loyalty with self-abandonment. So there's no judgment here, only understanding. Because letting go doesn't mean you're cold or cruel. It means you're choosing peace, even if it hurts. And that choice, it might be one of the most loving decisions you'll ever make, both for yourself and in a way that might not be obvious right now for the other person too. So grab your tea, find a quiet space, and let's gently unpack this together. Okay, so let's start with what detaching is not, because so many of us were taught it's selfish or cruel or somehow means we don't love deeply enough. Detaching does not mean, it doesn't mean you don't care, you're heartless, you're cutting someone off out of spite. Detachment is not revenge. It's not you punishing them. It's you freeing yourself from being emotionally entangled in a situation that's hurting you or keeping you stuck. So it's not about hating them. It's about loving yourself enough to stop bleeding emotionally just to prove your loyalty. Okay? I remember being in a relationship where things had become unhealthy, but I stayed for far too long because I thought leaving meant I was giving up or being cold. And I've been raised to believe that real love meant sticking out no matter what, right? When we were growing up in the struggle area, no matter what was going on, you were staying by that husband. And so you're raised in that. I know a lot of you guys resonate with me with this. And so I remember how before loyalty was measured by how much you could endure. And maybe you're raised with a similar message like I just was saying, because especially if you grew up in a family or culture that emphasized putting relationships above all else, that taught you that a good woman, I'm putting quotations, good woman or good daughter, a good friend always finds a way to make things work. These values of commitment and care run deep for many of us. They're beautiful in the right context. So when I tell you, I get it. But they can become painful when they keep us tied to situations that are depleting our spirits, dimming our light, and even causing harm to our well-being. Real detachment isn't about becoming cold or cutting people out of our life on a whim. It's about recognizing when a connection has become unhealthy and finding a way to just to maintain your love and compassion while also maintaining your boundaries and well-being. So I really want you to see on kind of what's going on here, right? When you're able to recognize that a connection is here and maintain love while also just understanding that you also have you. Remember, in relationships, you have yourself, the person has themselves, your individual journey, and you have your journey together in what you're doing. Right? So you don't want to lose sight on each one of these journeys. Okay, so sometimes this means physical distance. When it comes to detaching, taking a step back from constant contact, creating space in the relationship. And other times it's about just emotional distance, loving someone, but no longer taking responsibility for their choices, moods, or healing journey. For those of us with big hearts, right? I see you, especially women, on just our hearts are so huge. We've been socialized to be caretakers and emotional managers. This distinction can be really hard to grasp at first. And that's why I'm kind of repeating some of this, even making an episode about this, because we're so used to measuring our love by how much we give, how available we make ourselves, and how deeply we can understand and help another person. But I want you to really hear me. I've learned through both personal experience and walking alongside many clients, sometimes the most loving thing that you can do, both for yourself and the other person, is to stop participating in dynamics that aren't serving either of you. That's not coldness. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom and self-respect, wrapped in the courage to choose differently, even when it's painful. If you've worked with me, we work with being comfortable with uncomfortable, because you keep making decisions based on being comfortable, and that is not serving you. So I also want you to hear this. Detaching with love isn't a one-time decision. It's not like flipping a switch where suddenly all of your feelings are neatly managed. It's practice, a process, a daily choice to keep choosing your peace, even as your heart moves through these complex emotions. Some days you'll feel strong and clear in your boundaries. Other days you might feel the pull to go back to old patterns, to reach out, to try one more time to make things work. Understand that's normal. I get it. That's human. Those fluctuations don't mean you're doing it wrong. They mean you're doing it real. Okay, so let's get into what detachment actually is, because real detachment is grounded in love, but it starts with that self-love. So it means you stop trying to change someone who isn't willing to change themselves. You stop checking your phone, hoping they finally see your worth. You stop replaying conversations and fantasizing about closure that may never come. Detachment in general is saying, I still care about you, but I care about me too, and I can't keep loving you in ways that hurt me. It's letting someone be who they are without needing to save them, fix them, or keep performing to keep them close. This kind of detachment creates a sacred space, a breathing room between you and the situation or relationships that have been causing pain. In that space, something powerful happens. You start to rediscover yourself, your center, your own knowing. When we're deeply enmeshed in challenging relationships, we often lose touch with our own wisdom. We're so focused on managing the other person's emotions, on anticipating their needs, on walking on eggshells to avoid conflict, that we stop hearing our own inner voice. Detaching with love allows that voice to reemerge. It allows you to remember who you are beyond this relationship, beyond this struggle, beyond this pattern that's been consuming so much of your energy. I think of a client who had been in an on-again, off-again relationship for years. Every time her partner pulled away, she would go into overdrive trying to figure out what she had done wrong, how she could fix it, what she needed to change about herself to make him stay. When she finally began practicing detachment with love, she didn't stop caring about him, but she did stop abandoning herself in the process of caring. She stopped putting her life on hold, waiting for his text. She stopped molding herself into whatever she thought he wanted. She stopped taking responsibility for his hot and cold behavior. And in that space of detachment, she reconnected with parts of herself that had gotten lost. Her creativity, her friendships, her sense of purpose beyond the relationship. She found that she could still hold love for him while also holding love for herself in a new way. That's what healthy detachment makes possible. It's not about shutting down your heart. It's about expanding it to include yourself alongside others. For those of us who identify as empaths, as highly sensitive people, or who come from cultural backgrounds where deep emotional connection is valued, This could feel especially challenging. You might worry that creating more boundaries means losing your natural gifts of compassion, understanding. But I just want to offer a different perspective with this, okay? Because detaching with love doesn't diminish your capacity for empathy. It actually creates the conditions for a more sustainable, more authentic kind of compassion. One that flows from wholeness rather than depletion, from choice rather than just like this compulsion. Because when you're caring comes from a grounded, centered place where rather than from anxiety or fear. It becomes a genuine gift rather than a desperate offering. You're no longer loving from a place of scarcity, loving hard to prove your worth or to keep someone from leaving. Now you're loving from abundance. You're offering care because that's who you are, not because you need something in return. This shift is subtle, but it's profound. It changes the entire energy of how you show up in relationships. And often, ironically, it creates the possibility for healthier connections, either with the same person once dysfunctional patterns have been interrupted, right? Once you kind of interrupted that toxicity, or with new people who are attracted to your more grounded, authentic presence. So detaching with love is ultimately about honoring the reality that's in front of you, rather than clinging to fantasies of what could be if only. Right? It's about responding to what is, not what you wish were true. It's about loving people as they actually are, not as you desperately hoped they'll become with enough of your effort and care. And in that clear-eyed, present moment of love, there's a beautiful kind of freedom, both for you and for the other person. So why it's so hard, especially for us good girls, right? If you grow up being the fixer, the feeler, the one who keeps the peace, detaching feels unnatural. You're used to staying. I understand that. You're used to staying, explaining, hoping, giving second chances. You might even feel guilty for letting go, especially if the other person, the quote that is usually said, they didn't mean to hurt you. Or you blame yourself thinking maybe if you were more patient, less emotional, more understanding, they'd get it. But honestly, if you're loving them constantly makes you abandon yourself, you're not in a relationship, you're in a pattern. And detaching is how you break it. For many of us, especially women, the struggle to detach with love goes beyond individual relationships. It's rooted in messages we've received from a young age and what makes us worthy, what makes us, quote, good. Maybe you were taught that your value lies in how much you give, how selfless you can be, how well you anticipate and meet others' needs. Maybe you watched a woman in your family exhaust themselves, caring for others while rarely receiving the same level of care in return. These patterns run deep. They're not just habits, they're identity. When being the one, just the caring one, the understanding one, the one who never gives up on people becomes how you see yourself. Detaching can feel like a threat to who you fundamentally are. I remember this struggle clearly in my own life. For years, I prided myself on being the friend who was always there no matter what. The one who would pick up the phone at 2 a.m., who would drop everything to help someone in crisis, who would forgive again and again without requiring changed behavior. It felt good to be that person. It felt meaningful. It gave me a clear role, a purpose, a way to be certain of my value in others' lives. I get it. But over time, I started noticing a pattern. I was extending this unconditional care to people who couldn't or wouldn't offer me even basic consideration in return. I was explaining away behavior that would hurt me, making excuses for people who showed no interest in changing how they impacted me. And underneath it all was a painful belief that maybe this was the best I could hope for, that maybe my role was always going to be giving more than I received, that maybe being a good person, in this quotation marks, meant never expecting reciprocity or respect. And does any of that resonate with you? Have you found yourself accepting less than you deserve because asking for more or less feels selfish? Have you stayed in situations that drain you because leaving feels like failure? And I'll understand just for, my women of color. I see you too. This dynamic often carries additional layers. Many of us were raised in cultures that placed high value on family loyalty, on collective well-being over individual needs, on respecting elders or authority figures, even when they're causing harm. We've inherited generational wisdom about enduring hardship with grace, about making a way out of no way. This strength and resilience is beautiful. The deep commitment to community and connection is powerful. These values aren't wrong, but they can become painful when they're applied without discernment, when they keep us tied to situations that diminish our spirits. So what I've learned and what I want to share with you is that detaching with love isn't a rejection of these values. It's not turning your back on commitment or care. It's bringing greater intentionality to how you express those values so that your care becomes sustainable rather than depleting. Because here's what happens when we never detach. We burn out. We become resentful. We start giving from an empty well, and eventually we become less able to show up with genuine love and presence because we're so exhausted from trying to prove our worth through endless giving. That doesn't serve anyone, not you, not the people you care about, and the communities you're committed to. So learn to detach with love is ultimately about creating the conditions where your care can flow from wholeness rather than woundedness, from choice rather than obligation. And that kind of clear-eyed, boundaried love, it's more powerful than any care that comes from fear or guilt could ever be. So, how to actually detach without losing your softness. That's what I want you to get. So here's how you do it. Not all at once, but one loving step at a time. Step one, I want you to get clear on your boundaries. Ask yourself, what am I no longer available for? Okay? If it's inconsistency, emotional manipulation, or hot and cold behavior, name it. I know for me, it was hot and cold behavior. You choose what it is for you. But none of them are good, so you would choose all of them if you want to. But if you're starting off and stepping one at a time, just what you're not going for. This clarity is essential because detachment isn't about rejecting people wholesale, like all at once. It's about being specific about which behaviors and dynamics you're no longer willing to participate in. When you can name exactly what's not working, you can set boundaries that are precise rather than punitive. For example, instead of saying, I can't be around this person anymore, you might realize I'm no longer available for one-sided friendships where I'm always the one reaching out. Or I'm no longer available for relationships where my needs are treated as optional. Just being specific like this helps you detach from the harmful dynamics without necessarily having to detach from the person entirely. Though sometimes that becomes necessary too. Step two, I want you to stop explaining your worth. You do not have to convince someone to treat you well. That's not love, that's performance. Oh, and this is a big one. How many hours have we spent trying to help someone understand why their behavior hurt us? How many conversations have we initiated hoping that if we just found the right words, the perfect explanation, they would finally get it? When I tell you I've been there having the same conversation over and over, thinking that if I could just make them understand how I felt, things would change. But here's what I've learned. People who truly care about your well-being don't need to be convinced that your feelings matter. When someone consistently doesn't get it, it's rarely because you haven't explained well enough. It's because on some level, they benefit from not getting it. The dynamic works for them. Your emotional labor, your constant adapting, your lowered expectations, all of it serves them in some way. Detaching with love means accepting this reality, not with bitterness, but with clarity. It means recognizing that you can't talk someone into valuing you. And more importantly, that you shouldn't have to. Your worth isn't up for debate. It's not something you need to prove or earn or constantly reestablish. It simply is. In relationships that require you to forget this fundamental truth will always leave you depleted. Step 3, I want you to create emotional space. That might mean muting them on socials, limiting contact, replacing ruminating thoughts with grounding activities. I love me a good journaling, walks, safe conversations. This step is about creating a practical distance that allows your nervous system to regulate, your mind to clear, and your heart to gradually disentangle from. unhealthy attachments. So for many of us, especially if you're empath or highly sensitive person, we can feel almost physically connected to those we care about. Their moods become our moods. Their problems feel like emergencies we must solve. Their pain registers in our bodies as if it were our own. Creating emotional space interrupts this merger. It allows you to differentiate between your feelings and theirs, your responsibilities and theirs, your journey and theirs. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care from a more grounded place with healthy boundaries intact. It means you recognize that feeling someone else's emotions intensely doesn't actually help them. It often hinders your ability to show up with clear, grounded support. So one practical tip I found helpful is when you notice yourself ruminating about the relationship or situations, gently redirect your attention to your own center, right? Place a hand on your heart, take a deep breath and ask, what do I need right now? Then offer yourself that care, whether it's rest, movement, creative expression, or connection with people who replenish rather than deplete you. Step 4, grieve what you had hoped for or what you hoped would be. Letting go isn't just about what happened. It's about grieving the fantasy, which is one of the hardest parts that no one really talks about. It's more about grieving the fantasy of what you thought would happen, the potential, the version you were holding on to. You can miss someone and still move on. Missing them isn't a sign to return. It's just evidence that you love deeply. This grief work is often the most overlooked aspect of detaching with love. But it's essential because what keeps us hooked isn't just the actual relationship. It's the dream of what it could have been, the potential we saw, the future we imagined. Because understand that letting go of these hopes and dreams can be more painful than letting go of the actual relationship, especially if the reality had never matched what you longed for. You're grieving something you never actually had, and that's a particular complex kind of form of loss. But be gentle with yourself through this grief. Don't rush it or bypass it. Allow yourself to feel the sadness, the disappointment, even the anger that comes with recognizing that something you deeply wanted just isn't going to happen the way you hoped. This grief isn't a sign you're doing detachment wrong. It's not evidence that you should go back and try again. It's natural, healthy response to loss. And feeling it fully is part of what allows you to eventually move forward with an open heart rather than a guarded one. I remember after one particular painful relationship ended, I kept having dreams about this person. In my dreams, they were showing up differently with more awareness, more care, more capacity to meet me where I needed to be met. I would wake up confused, wondering if these dreams were some kind of sign that I should try again. So when I tell you I get it, I do. But what I eventually realized was that my subconscious was processing the gap between what I had hoped for and what had actually been possible. Those dreams weren't messages to go back. They were my mind's way of acknowledging what I had truly wanted and grieving it hadn't been available. As I allowed myself to feel that grief without judgment, the dreams gradually subsided. The emotional charge around the relationship began to dissipate. I could think of this person with compassion rather than pain, and with clarity rather than confusion. That's what becomes possible when we fully allow ourselves to grieve, not just the relationship itself, but the hopes, dreams, and illusions that kept us attached to something that wasn't serving our highest good. Throughout all these steps, remember, detaching with love isn't about becoming hard or closed. It's about becoming clear and grounded. It's about loving from wholeness rather than from woundedness. It's about creating the conditions where genuine care can flow without the distortions of fear or obligation or self-abandonment. Understand that your softness isn't something to overcome or protect against. It's something to channel with greater discernment, to offer from a place of choice rather than compulsion. And learning to detach with love often allows your natural compassion to flow more freely, more authentically, and more powerful than before. And so as we come to the close of our time together, I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to even consider this path of detaching with love. In a world that often glorifies struggle as a proof of dedication, or choosing your peace can feel just radical or even rebellious at times. But I believe it's one of the most healing choices we can make, not just for ourselves, but the collective patterns working to just transform. So if today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love you to sign up for my weekly newsletter where I share intimate reflections, practical tools, and gentle reminders that go straight to your inbox, like having a heart-to-heart conversation that supports you exactly where you are. The link to subscribe is in the show notes. It's completely free. You can get all these notes are sent straight to you and get access to things that are coming up. I have, a couple things that are planned. I'd also love to hear from you. What relationship or situation in your life is calling for this practice of detaching with love? What's been your experience with creating boundaries while still maintaining care? Share your insights in the comments or connect with me on Instagram or TikTok. Instagram at IamSamantha.a or on TikTok at Moving Beyond You. Remember, this journey isn't about becoming perfect at detachment. It's about bringing growing awareness, compassion, intentionality to how you love both others and yourself. It's about small, consistent choices that gradually shift the entire foundation of how you show up in a relationship. You can do this without losing your softness. You can do this without being cold. You can do this while still honoring your natural capacity for deep care and connection. In fact, learning to detach with love might be what allows that beautiful, compassionate heart of yours to finally shine in its full power, no longer dimmed by fear, obligation, or the exhaustion of loving in ways that deplete your spirit. Until next time, remember, your peace is precious, your boundaries are sacred, and your capacity to love from a grounded, centered place is one of the greatest gifts you can offer to yourself and to our world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for every step you take toward loving both yourself and others with greater freedom and truth. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.